What happens when a beloved icon sits down for what should be a simple chat about her new album, only to face an interviewer who seems determined to tear her down? It only took 37 seconds of Seth Meyers questioning Cher's authenticity before the entire interview exploded into television history. The studio lights were blazing hot that Tuesday evening as Cher settled into the guest chair across from Seth Meyers. She looked radiant in her sequined black jacket, her silver hair catching the studio lights perfectly. The audience was buzzing with excitement. This was supposed to be a celebration. Cher had just released her first album in 5 years, and fans around the world were calling it her best work yet. "So Cher," Seth began, his voice carrying an edge that wasn't there during his opening monologue, "let's talk about this new album of yours. Some critics are saying it sounds a little too much like your old stuff. Are you just playing it safe these days?" Cher's smile faltered slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Well, Seth, I think my fans appreciate that I stay true to my sound. This album has been 3 years in the making, and every song comes from a very personal place." "Personal place," Seth repeated, making air quotes with his fingers. The audience shifted uncomfortably. "But isn't that what every artist says? I mean, how personal can it really be when you're working with the same producers you've used for decades?" The camera caught Cher's expression changing. Her jaw tightened, and she leaned forward slightly. "I'm sorry. What exactly are you trying to say here?" Seth shrugged, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "I'm just wondering if maybe you're stuck in the past. Your last tour was basically a greatest hits show. Now this album sounds like something you could have released 20 years ago. Where's the growth?" "Growth?" Cher's voice rose just a notch. "Seth, I've been making music since before you were born. I've reinvented myself more times than most artists have made albums. What exactly do you know about growth in this industry?" The audience was dead silent now. This wasn't the playful banter they'd come to see. Seth's producer was frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, but Seth seemed oblivious to the warning signs. "Look, I'm not trying to be harsh here," Seth continued, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But let's be honest, you're 77 years old. Maybe it's time to step aside and let the younger generation take over. I mean, what can you possibly have to say that's relevant to today's music scene?" Cher's eyes flashed. "Excuse me? I'm just saying," Seth pressed on, clearly enjoying himself now. "Maybe the reason your album sounds so dated is because you are dated. When was the last time you listened to what actual young people are listening to? Do you even know who Billie Eilish is? Are you seriously asking me if I know who Billie Eilish is?" Cher's voice was ice cold now. "Seth, I was making music when your parents were in diapers. I've sold over 100 million records worldwide. I've won an Oscar, an Emmy, a Grammy, and 3 Golden Globes. And you're sitting here questioning my relevance?" Seth leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Awards don't make you relevant today, Cher. That's yesterday's news. I'm talking about right now, in this moment. What do you have to offer that we can't get from someone half your age with twice the energy?" The audience began to murmur. Some people were shaking their heads. Others looked genuinely shocked. Cher's hands were trembling now, but not from fear. This was pure anger. "Half my age with twice the energy," she repeated slowly. "Seth, do you hear yourself right now? Do you understand what you're saying to me?" "I'm being honest," Seth replied. "Isn't that what good interviews are supposed to be about? Honest conversation?" Cher stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Honest? You call this honest? You're being disrespectful, ageist, and, frankly, you're embarrassing yourself on national television." Seth's smirk faded. "Now hold on." "No, you hold on," Cher interrupted, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. "I came here tonight to talk about my music, to connect with my fans, to have a good time. Instead, you've spent the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate me? You think because I'm a woman of a certain age that I'm just going to sit here and take this?" The camera operators were having a field day. This was television gold, and everyone in the studio knew it. Seth's face was turning red, and he was clearly losing control of the situation. "Cher, please sit down," he said, his voice much smaller now. Let's just, what?" Cher fired back. "Let's just pretend you didn't just tell a music legend that she's too old and irrelevant to make music? Let's pretend you didn't just insult not only me, but every older person watching this show?" The audience was fully on Cher's side now. People were actually booing Seth, something that rarely happened on late-night television. His own crowd was turning against him. Seth looked around the studio desperately. The boos were getting louder, and his usual confident demeanor was cracking. He tried to wave his hands to calm the crowd, but it only made things worse. Okay, everyone, he said into his microphone, his voice shaky. Let's all just take a breath here. Cher was still standing, towering over him with an intensity that could melt steel. Don't you dare try to control this crowd, Seth. They're reacting to your behavior, not mine. My behavior? Seth's voice cracked. Cher, I was just doing my job. I asked tough questions. That's what interviewers do. Tough questions? Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. You call asking me if I know who Billie Eilish is a tough question? You call telling me I'm too old to make music a tough question? Those aren't tough questions, Seth. Those are insults wrapped up in fake journalism. The show's band members were exchanging glances. Even they looked uncomfortable. The drummer actually put his sticks down and shook his head in disgust. Seth tried to regain some composure. Look, maybe I came across wrong, but I think you're overreacting here. Overreacting? Cher's voice went up an octave. Overreacting? Seth, you just told me, on live television, in front of millions of people, that I should step aside because I'm too old. How exactly should I react to that? I didn't say you should step aside, Seth protested weakly. I just suggested that maybe. You suggested that maybe it's time for me to step aside and let the younger generation take over. Cher quoted his exact words back to him. Those were your exact words, Seth. Don't try to backtrack now. Seth was sweating visibly now. His makeup was starting to run under the hot lights. Cher, please, let's just sit down and talk about this like adults. Like adults? Cher's eyes were blazing. You want to talk like adults? Then start acting like one. Apologize. The studio fell silent. Even the camera crew stopped moving. Everyone was waiting to see what Seth would do. Seth looked around the room, clearly calculating his options. His producers were making frantic gestures from behind the cameras. The audience was staring at him expectantly. Cher was standing there like a warrior goddess, waiting for his response. Seth started, then stopped. His pride was clearly warring with his survival instincts. I think maybe you misunderstood what I was trying to say. Cher's face hardened even more, if that was possible. I misunderstood? Seth, the entire studio heard what you said. The entire country heard what you said. Are you really going to sit there and gaslight me right now? I'm not gaslighting anyone, Seth said defensively. I'm just saying that maybe we can interpret things differently. Interpret? Cher stepped closer to his desk. Seth, there's no interpretation needed here. You asked me if I know who Billie Eilish is. You told me I sound dated because I am dated. You said I should step aside for younger artists. Those are facts, not interpretations. The audience started clapping. Someone in the back shouted, "You tell him, Cher." Others joined in with supportive calls. Seth's face was now completely red. This is getting out of hand. No, Seth, Cher said firmly. This got out of hand the moment you decided to disrespect me. I've been in this business for over 50 years. I've worked with everyone from Sonny Bono to Lady Gaga. I've seen hosts come and go, and I can tell you right now, the good ones don't treat their guests like garbage. I wasn't treating you like garbage, Seth said, but his voice was barely above a whisper now. Then what would you call it? Cher demanded. What would you call questioning my relevance? What would you call suggesting I'm too old to make music? What would you call asking me if I know current artists like I'm some out-of-touch relic? Seth tried one more time to salvage the situation. Cher, I think we're both getting a little heated here. Maybe we should take a commercial break and... Oh no. Cher cut him off sharply. Don't you dare try to hide behind a commercial break. You started this in front of everyone, and you're going to finish it in front of everyone. You owe me an apology, and you owe one to every person watching who's over the age of 50. The audience erupted in cheers and applause. People were standing up, giving Cher a standing ovation while she was still in the middle of confronting Seth. Seth looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Cher, You what? She pressed. You're sorry? You made a mistake? You didn't mean to be completely unprofessional and disrespectful? I was just trying to have an honest conversation about your career, Seth mumbled. Honest? Cher's laugh was sharp and bitter. Seth, there's nothing honest about ageism. There's nothing honest about trying to tear down a guest who came here to promote her work. There's nothing honest about what you've done here tonight. Seth was visibly shaking now. The confident late-night host who had walked out to thunderous applause just 20 minutes earlier was nowhere to be found. In his place sat a man who had clearly bitten off more than he could chew. Cher, he tried one more time, his voice barely audible over the continuing applause from the audience. I really think we should. You really think we should what? Cher interrupted, her voice cutting through the noise like a sword. You think we should pretend this didn't happen? You think we should smile and shake hands and act like you didn't just spend the last 15 minutes trying to humiliate me?" The audience was getting louder. Someone shouted, "Apologize to Cher," and others picked up the chant, "Apologize, apologize, apologize." Seth looked around desperately. His producers were making slashing motions across their throats, clearly wanting to cut to commercial. But the cameras kept rolling. This was live television at its most raw and unfiltered. Seth started, then stopped. He looked down at his desk, then back up at Cher, who was still standing over him like an avenging angel. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to what?" Cher demanded. "You didn't mean to ask me if I knew who Billie Eilish is? You didn't mean to tell me I'm too old? You didn't mean to suggest I should step aside? Because, Seth, those words came out of your mouth. Nobody forced you to say them." The studio audience was completely on Cher's side now. People were actually booing Seth every time he tried to speak. His own crowd, the people who came to see him, were turning against him in real time. "This is insane," Seth muttered, running his hands through his hair. "What's insane?" Yer shot back. "Is that you thought you could treat me this way and get away with it. What's insane is that you thought I would just sit here and take your disrespect with a smile." Seth made one final, desperate attempt to regain control. "Cher, I think you're taking this way too personally. I was just trying to challenge you as an artist." The words had barely left his mouth before Cher exploded. "Challenge me as an artist?" Her voice was so loud it seemed to shake the entire studio. "Challenge me? Seth, I've been challenged by bigger and better people than you since before you were even born. I've been challenged by record executives, by critics, by other artists, by Hollywood, by everyone who ever told me I couldn't do something. And you know what? I proved them all wrong." She stepped even closer to his desk, her hands pressed flat against the surface. "I survived the music industry in the 60s when women were told to be quiet and look pretty. I survived my divorce when everyone said my career was over. I survived being called too old, too weird, too much, for decades. I won an Oscar when people said I was just a singer. I had hit songs in my 70s when people like you said I should retire. And you think you are going to challenge me?" The audience was going absolutely wild. People were on their feet, cheering and clapping. Even some of the crew members were applauding. Seth looked like he might cry. "Cher, please." "Please what?" she demanded. "Please make this easy for you? Please pretend you're the victim here? Please let you off the hook for your terrible behavior?" She straightened up, smoothing down her sequin jacket. "You know what, Seth? I've had enough. I came here tonight as a professional, as someone who respects the craft of entertainment and the relationship between performer and audience. I came here to share my music and connect with people who might enjoy it. Instead, I got attacked by someone who clearly has no respect for what I've accomplished or what I represent." The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was hanging on her every word. "I've been doing television interviews longer than you've been alive," Cher continued, her voice steady and powerful. "I've sat across from the best and the worst this business has to offer. But I have never, in all my years, encountered such unprofessional, disrespectful behavior from a host." She picked up her purse from beside the chair. "You want to know what's relevant, Seth? What's relevant is treating people with dignity. What's relevant is showing respect for your guests and your audience. What's relevant is understanding that age brings wisdom, experience, and perspective that you clearly lack." Seth tried one more time. "Cher, don't leave like this." "Leave like what?" She turned back to face him. "Leave with my dignity intact? Leave after standing up for myself and every older person watching this show? Leave after showing you and everyone else that I won't tolerate being disrespected?" She walked toward the edge of the stage area. "You're absolutely right, Seth. I am leaving like this. I'm leaving as someone who knows her worth and won't let anyone, especially not someone like you, make her feel less than she is." The audience erupted into the loudest applause of the night. People were standing, cheering. Some were even crying. Cher turned back one final time. "And for the record," she called out over the noise, "I've known Billie Eilish since before she was famous. We text regularly. She calls me Cher Auntie. Maybe if you spent less time trying to tear people down and more time building relationships in this industry, you'd know that." With that, Cher walked off the stage to thunderous applause, leaving Seth Meyers sitting alone at his desk, speechless and utterly defeated in what would become one of the most talked about television moments of the year.